This is a fatha, ba, and then this harf al-mad alif. So we have mad tabi'i kind of thing initially. But then the lam here has a shadda after it. Okay, so because harf al-mad now is followed by a shadda, it's within the same word, so it's word based. We call it kalimi. Okay, now because this kalimi now is followed by a shadda, so we call it kalimi muthaqqal. This, you don't have an option but to do it as 6. There is no waladdallin. That recitation has to be a 6. Okay, another one. For example, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says al-haqqa, so this is harf mad, fatha, followed by an alif, that's harf mad, and now the qaf here has a shadda on top of it. It has to be a 6. Okay, so that's word based. Okay, now what is kalimi but then mukhaffaf? An example? Yeah, followed by a sukoon. We had an example of those? You have?
I don't know how to say it either.
Yes. So, let me see how I write this thing. Ya ilahi. I think this is the way it's written. But al-an, now, when Fir'aun said, when he was about to drown, and he said, now I believe in the Lord of Musa. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, now you're believing after you did what you've done. And so when you recite this, notice harf mad followed by a sukoon within the same word. So it's word based followed by a sukoon. The mad here is 6. الآن وقد عصيت. So that's a 6 حركة. Okay. طيب. So that's word based. The letter based that we said harfi is all these disjointed letters again. But instead of them being one of those hayyu tuhr, we gave another mnemonic to remember them. Do you guys remember? كم عسل نقص. Subhanallah, the angle here. نعم, yeah. كم عسل نقص. Okay, كم عسل نقص. ما نقص؟ الحمد لله. Okay. كم? Oh. How much of the honey is lost? Is lost or is less? Yeah. كم عسل. Or some others actually remember it by another similar thing, but نقص عسلكم. نقص عسلكم. It's easier. Yeah. نقص عسلكم. Your honey is less. So notice all the disjointed letters in the Quran, all of them are either حي طهر or نقص عسلكم. All the letters that are. So when, for example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala now says Hamim, and there are 7 of these surah, Hamim, the Ha is part of Hayy Tuhr, but the Mim here is part of this Naqasa Asalukum. So this will have to be 6, but Hayy Tuhr will have to be 2. So when we recite, we'll say Hamim, a 2 and a 6 on this. For example, Qaf. How would you recite Qaf? Somebody? Qaf. Thank you. It's not one of Hayy Tuhr, so you have to do a 6 harak. It's lazim. You don't have an option. Thank you. I'm going to count. Tfaddali. Oh. Okay, go ahead.
You have to go slower.
Go ahead. I'm waiting. معلش, repeat. Thank you. Very good. Okay. Just to make sure the counting kind of works on these. So for example, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, what Surah Maryam, how does it start? Kaf, Kaf, Ha, Ya, Ain, Sad. This is where we practice so Kaf, Ha, Ya, Ain, Sad. Sorry, the angle is just does not helping. But Kaf, Ha, Ya, Ain, Sad. So how do we, Sister Tasneem, go ahead please. We're counting, huh? So let's first mark them. I'm gonna put 2 and a 6 kind of on top of them. So this is 6, 2, 2, 6, 6. Can you imagine? I'm guessing the next version of the Quran will have these numbers on top of them. It should make it easy, right? Okay. طيب اتفضلي أخت تسنيم. عين. أيوة. الصاد was short a little bit, but that's good inshallah. That's the practice we need to do inshallah with the med. And so if you kind of measure this is a 2, so the 6 will have to 3 times as much. So keep that in mind. If you have a med that is 4, it has to be twice as much as your 2 that you recite, and so on inshallah.
It is possible for them to put those numbers eventually.
I'm guessing. Yeah. It makes it easier. I think on much of the Quran, if they put these small little things, so for example, if I have, for example, bihi, just to make it easy, maybe you can put, kind of 6, kind of a 2, 4, or 6 kind of thing, just to indicate. Statistics, this I'm obsessed with numbers. That's statistics. Isn't that great? Yeah. So inshallah today we go into these attributes. Anybody has heard of a nabr? تفضل يا أخت منى.
I have a question about the المد المفصل اللي شدة. Do we have to for that shadda?
Do you have to what?
Like
Uh-huh.
So 6 harakat from that and mean harakat.
Yes.
The same thing with the other one. If it's how like القاف.
لا, that's because of it's a غنة. The meme has a طامة. The meme has a غنة. That's why you're doing that. But the qaf shouldn't. The qaf shouldn't. Yeah. Yes.
So letter base, the kam hasan nafas was for heavy, right?
Yes.
What are the like?
Oh no, it's in the way it's written. Both of them. نقص عسلكم was for the heavy and the light. مخفف and مثقل. So for example, when we write the word alif, lam, mim. Okay, when you write this, so this is to say alif. Alif alif is not one of the neither حي طهر nor نقص عسلكم. So alif is just alif. But on the lam mim, this is a 6. Again, going into our own way of writing this. And the mim is نقص عسلكم 6. So you're going to have to do 6 and 6. So your question is this مخفف or مثقل, right? If you were to kind of break this down into an actual writing, so how would it, so alif lam mim, you see that that we did, what we did there, that part there is a shadda actually. That's a shadda. So that's why this is حرفي مثقل.
Okay.
Yeah. لا, but for example, عين is part of نقص عسلكم. عين سين. There is not عين سين. You don't do that. It's عين سين. So that is just a sukun. You stopped with the عين. عين. This you stopped at it as if it's a sukun. So that's why it's مخفف. But it's both نقص عسلكم for practical purposes. I don't know. It answers?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
You said that's how you do it?
The what? حي طهر is just a 2 حركة.
Yeah, but so in the compulsory mud in the harf, it's only naqas asalakum.
Yes.
Those are the only ones that belong to that category of necessary part, because
Yes.
mud lazim is always 6.
Yes.
It's only those letters.
Exactly. طيب. So inshallah today we go into this something called an-nabr, and then we'll talk about attributes. Anybody has heard about this an-nabr? No? You probably know how to say it, but it's rules again that the scholars that in the second generation or so after the Prophet ﷺ, when they came and they tried to document how is this Quran recited. So usually the scholars, before they talk about the attributes of the letters, they talk about this, because when we talk about the attributes, it's intrinsic attributes that we're referring to each letter, as you will see in a moment. But an-nabr is basically, there are certain words when you recite them that you have to make them kind of put a pressure on part or on a part or a specific letter of the word. You have to kind of emphasize it. In fact, your sound gets a little bit louder, and it's a very interesting, and that's the beauty of the Quran. You know, it's not just letters that we recite, but it has meanings. It emphasizes certain aspects of meanings, so that the meanings are emphasized in the qira'ah. And one of the most beautiful things, by the way, we just talked about med, right, and all the features of med. But as you go into the meanings of the Quran, the med, there are 6 are things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala really want to kind of emphasize. The ones that we don't know are the disjointed letters, because we don't even know what they mean. Alif Lam Mim, what does that really mean? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only knows. But on words, when we say Tammah, I mean that's just because it's a qiyamah, or al-haqqa, or so it's a 6 haraka. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to emphasize that it's something very serious. But when you talk about sama and ma, something that is kind of distant, so a lot of meanings that the scholars actually talk about when they talk about med, something really beautiful, inshallah, that maybe as we move on we can touch upon those, inshallah. So this, what we're talking about here, is also something along these lines, that your voice emphasizes certain letters, because that's the way, first of all, it came to us, but it also emphasizes some kind of meanings. There are 5 different circumstances where you do this. Okay, so if I lose you, just let me know here. The first circumstance of this is in stopping on a word that has a shadda. Okay, and this shadda happens to be on the very last letter of the word. When you do that and you recite, subhanallah, the fonts are not good, but when you recite this, you have to emphasize that. So and the way you emphasize this is not by creating a med. You don't create a med, but rather you raise your voice to emphasize the shadda. So, for example, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Allahu la ilaha illa huwa al-hayyul qayyum, right? That we say that all the time, and we continue. But what if you want to stop on the word hayy? Allahu la ilaha illa huwa al-hayy. It's not just because I kind of just wanted to make my voice beautiful and I said hayy. No, you actually are, the Prophet ﷺ, this is how he recited it. Because the last letter of that word has a shadda, okay? When you say it, you have to say hayy. And you have to do that. Don't create a med Arab. We're not talking about a med. So because there are some that will recite this and they'll say, Allahu la ilaha illa huwa al-hayy. It's not that. We're not creating a med. We're not saying hayy. It's hayy. Okay? So that's what this. Similarly on the word mustaqar or mustaqir. So when we recite this, we know that anytime we stop on letters, we make it a sukoon, right? But this is a shadda. So when we stop at it, we say فَمُسْتَقَرٌ وَمُسْتَوْدَعٌ. But if I want to stop, فَمُسْتَقَرٌ. And you have to kind of qar. You have to do that. Sheikh Muhib, by the way, probably some of you know him. Sheikh Muhib is exceptional on this, among the best that I've heard, emphasizing these. And at the convention, subhanAllah, I was just enjoying every part of his qiyam that he was reciting, because he is really just amazing in emphasizing these. And you would tend to think he's just doing, why is he doing that? Some of these words. But it's for this, it's called the nabr. Okay. Here, for example, وَبَثَّ. Okay. وَبَثَّ مِنْهَا رِجَالًا كَثِيرًا وَنِسَاءً. وَبَث. You have to say وَبَث. It's not وَبَث. It's not وَبَث. It's وَبَث. That your voice becomes, again, just going into the definition, your voice goes slightly becomes louder to emphasize that shadda on the word. Now, subhanallah, you understand this rule here, and you say, well, I'm going to apply to every time there is a shadda at the end of a word. So, for example, here, وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ اشْتَبَاكُمْ. So, وَلَكِنَّ. So when you recite this now, you would tend to think, walakin. We don't do that. we don't do that, because here we have actually a ghunna. And so the ghunna, so when we recite this here, we say, walakin. You see, this is like almost like a mid kind of thing that we're doing, but it's a ghunna. You see, walakin. So you stop at it with a sukoon, but without emphasizing the voice. And that's just very small. It's a tricky thing, because easily you could have done walakin. You don't do that. Walakin. That's how you end this one. Tfaddal.
This is only if you intend to stop here, right? So
Yes.
this doesn't help you.
Exactly. This is if you were to stop at it. Yes, if you were to. But when you stop at it, you don't have the option of just saying it, just a sukoon. You can't do that. It has to be a shadda, but that shadda also cannot be a mad that you create. It's not. You have to kind of emphasize it with a louder voice. This word, for example, al-jan. Surah Al-Rahman. Insu wala jan. We say it, right? But when we recite it properly, إنس ولا جان. You have to end it like that. Now, by the way, why did I do a 6 there? إنس ولا جان. I ended in because of the ghunna aspect. That's okay. But why did I make it a 6? مثقل. Kalimi, مثقل. It's within the same word. I'm encountering harf mad. So jan. Okay. So this is harf mad. This is mad tabi'i in itself. But then this ended up being with a shadda, followed by a shadda. That's harf. That's kalimi, word based, followed by a shadda, مثقل, because it's a shadda.
Do we call this when you're describing it as a let's say lazim?
Yes,
And then,
absolutely.
And then define it by saying kalimi.
Yes, yeah. Academically, yes, if you were to kind of really spell it out as to the type. So this is when you have ghunna. So that's understood. But subhanallah, here another one. Tabbat yada abi lahabin wa tab. Right? I mean, wa tab here, you would say, okay, it's not a ghunna. So why is it an exception? Because this is simply because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave it to us this way. Tabbat yada abi lahabin wa tab. You have to do that. Wa tab. We're not saying wa tab, or so we're not raising our voice. It's just wa tab. That's just a qalqala thing that we'll talk about at another time. Okay? So this is how it's, or the word al-haq. ذَلِكَ الْيَوْمُ الْحَقُّ. حَقُّ. That's just a qalqala thing. It's not حَقُّ. We don't raise our voice. ذَلِكَ الْيَوْمُ الْحَقُّ. Okay? Is that okay? Yes. Sorry.
Most likely when it ends with nun gunna,
Yes. Jazakallah khair. Very, very good. So when it's a ghunna or ending up with a qalqala that has, and that's the exception here that we're referring to. So even, and that's Jazakallah khair. You know, the scholar said, so even the exceptions, there is almost a rule to them if you were to look kind of deep and see what's really the pattern that's there. So in this case, when it ends up, and these are the two words in the Quran, by the way, that happen to end with a qalqala. And so these are the exceptions you need to remember on them. Similarly, ولكن, but that's the ghunna thing, has a number of other examples. Any question on this? This is just the first circumstance of what we call a nabr, which is raising your voice a little bit to emphasize a letter that you just don't want to let it go as if it's just a sukoon. It's not a sukoon, it's not a mad, it's actually something you want to emphasize, the shadda itself. The second circumstance is, this occurs when pronouncing a letter that has, again, a shadda, and the letter that comes before it is either a kasra or a fatha. So for example here, quwwa. So notice here, this is the letter with the shadda. It's yeah, it's I'm not sure why it's giving it a kasra. It's actually, I believe it's a dhamma. But anyways, let me just, it's actually not, it's not a kasra, it's a dhamma or a fatha. So I don't know why I typed a kasra there.
So there is a type, right? This case occurs when pronouncing a what?
Yeah, harf, it's a letter that has a shadda. So in this case, so for example, the waw, okay, or so these letters that have a shadda here. So for example, a ya, as you can see here, sabiyya, qawwamin. So it's the ya or the waw. So maybe I have to really kind of rewrite this portion, but it's really a waw or a ya that have a shadda on them. So you want to emphasize those, and they actually happen to be preceded by a dhamma or a fatha. It's not a kasra. So I'm gonna resend you this. But the rule says basically the following: when you read this now, quwwa, so this you have to put a nabr to it. So quwwa, and you don't say quwwa. You're not creating a mad again. You're not creating a mad, but you want to emphasize the waw. Okay, quwwa, qawwamin, sharqiyya, okay, sabiyya. So again, emphasizing these shadda and not just kind of letting go of them or creating. The most important part that people the scholars were on this is some people tend to make them like a mad. So be careful. It's not a mad. It's actually a shadda that you want to emphasize. Okay, quwwa, qawwamin, sharqiyya, sabiyya. Subhanallah, if you happen to listen to Sheikh Muhib, watch, he actually likes to read Surah Maryam kathir, and so you see this repeatedly in there. Any question on this?
What's the last one?
So again, just I'm sorry, sabiyya. So it's actually either a waw or a ya, okay, with a shadda. A waw or a ya with a shadda. When it's preceded by either a dhamma or a fatha. So I'm going to have to kind of rewrite that portion there.
So that letter should be waw.
Sabiyya.
Or ya.
I'm sorry?
Is that what you're saying? The case occurs when pronouncing a waw or a ya
Yes.
that has a shadda.
That has a shadda, yes. Yeah. طيب يا خلينا أتأكد الله. I'm confusing myself now. القراءة مضبوطة. The قراءة is correct. قوة, قوامين, شرقية, and صبية. So that's kind of the way you want to emphasize it. Let me check on exactly how the rule applies, and I'll get back with it just to make sure I'm precise on this, inshallah. We'll review it next time بمشيئة الله. طيب. And then this probably you've seen before. This occurs when changing over from a mad letter to the first letter of a shadda. So for example here, this is حرف المد, right? حرف المد. When you're changing from this حرف المد to another letter, that letter that's following حرف المد actually has a shadda. Okay, when you do that, you have to do nabr. Okay, you have to do it. And this is very common on Surah Al-Fatiha, the mistake, very common. So, غَيْرِ الْمَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا الضَّالِّينَ. Why am I doing il? It's because of nabr. So you cannot say وَلَا الضَّالِّينَ. You can't do that. You have to say al-leen. You have to hold on to it.
So lam is the word that you raise.
Yes, exactly. It's the letter that follows, the letter that has the shadda that follows the harf al-mad. You have to emphasize that. So, dabbatin. So again, on the ba that follows the harf al-mad.
So it'd be the ba that you raise?
Yes. You raise your voice or the nabr on the harf al-ba.
And the dal-leen.
Yes.
Lam has a
Shadda. Yes. It's a shadda, yeah. Similarly, al-haqqa, harf al-mad followed by qaf that has a shadda. Al-haqqatu malha. You see that emphasis there? It's because of a nabr. Again. So it's not just putting a shadda there, but emphasizing it with this raising of the voice. Now, subhanAllah, when you listen to the Qur'an, notice this aspect, and it's very beautiful. Any question on this should be straightforward, inshallah. The fourth circumstance. This I had to be corrected even as early as a year ago. Sheikh Uthman, after the convention, when I was sitting with him, he said, Khalid, you are relatively weak on this one. So I had to be corrected just less than a year ago, because I used to do it a little bit loose. This is when stopping on a word that has a hamza. When you stop on a word that has a hamza, as the last letter preceded by a mad. So, for example, here is harf al-mad, and then it doesn't have to be harf al-mad. It could be harf leen. And remember now, leen is what? It's either a waw or a ya preceded by a fatha. So it could be harf al-mad or harf al-leen, either one of them. But in either case, when you end up in the word that has a hamza, you want to make sure that that hamza is truly said. Because easily I could read this mistakenly and say as-sama, and it's as if the hamza is. Did he say hamza there? I'm not. Did he? So if you're in doubt, it was not emphasized. So you want to put a nabr there to emphasize that the hamza is actually there. As-sama. That part is a nabr. Okay. So عليهم دائرة السوء. عليهم دائرة السوء. That part that you put is a nabr. Yes. Yeah. And it's not just raising the volume by putting the emphasis on the makhraj, because it's so deep that it might be lost, this hamza. Sama. Hiccup, okay. Is this okay? Yeah, this you really want to, because this is easily, sometimes you're not sure if the qari has said a hamza or not. So you want to, that's what a nabr is, to emphasize its actual presence. The very last rule, and this is a very interesting one. This rule is when it actually encompasses 3 different words in the Quran. It's specific 3 different locations in the Quran. And these locations is when you read the word from the Arabic kind of meaning, فَلَمَّا ذَاقَ الشَّجَرَةِ. So when Adam alayhi salam and Hawa alayhi salam, when they tasted from that, when they ate from that tree, they became kind of naked, if you will, to indicate that they did something wrong. When you come to read this, it's actually ذَاقَ الشَّجَرَةِ, right? Because both of them actually did it. You see, both of them did this. But when you come to read it, there is here Hamzat al-Wasl. So you cannot say فَلَمَّا ذَاقَا الشَّجَرَةِ. In the Arabic you don't do that. It's not just the Quran, even in the Arabs they don't say فَلَمَّا ذَاقَا الشَّجَرَةِ. You don't. So somehow this alif here that emphasizes two individuals is actually dropped in the qira'ah. It's dropped. But in dropping it, you don't want to indicate, you don't want to give the impression that it's only one of them that did it. Because by dropping the alif there is actually to indicate that two of them did it. Both of them did it. But by dropping it, you don't want to give the impression that only one of them did it. So when you recite this, you would say, فَلَمَّا ذَاقَ الشَّجَرَةَ ذَاقَ الشَّجَرَةَ. That part there that you're putting the qaf is to indicate that originally it was actually an alif, but you dropped it because of the presence of Hamzat al-Wasl there. فَلَمَّا ذَاقَ الشَّجَرَةَ. That part there is a nabr. You put that to indicate you dropped something, but you're making up for it by a nabr. نعم بالضبط on the qaf. ذاق الشجر. That part that you're putting is called the nabr. تفضل يا أخي. طبعا فتحة on the qaf, but you drop the alif because the proper just proper qira'ah in terms of the actual Arabic qira'ah is فَلَمَّا ذَاقَا الشَّجَرَ. But you don't put ذَاقَا, it's two individuals, but you drop this alif somehow. ذَاقَ الشَّجَرَةَ. This emphasis, this nabr is to make up for this alif that is there. Similarly in the second one, قَالَ الْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ. They both said Alhamdulillah. But again, you see this here, there is Hamzat Wasl there, so you have to drop the alif. قَالَ الْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ. This part that is nabr that we just, قَالَ الْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ, not قَالَ الْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ. You drop the alif. قَالَ الْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ. That nabr is again to emphasize the alif that is dropped. Okay?
So that tells an Arabic speaking person that there's actually two people talking.
Yes, yes. Yeah, and for the qira'ah purpose, because of the Arabic language, you had to drop the alif, but you make up for it by emphasizing that in the qira'ah. It's a very beautiful way, subhanallah. وَاسْتَبَقَ الْبَابِ. When Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam, the lady was trying to tempt him to do the wrong act. He was running and she was chasing him. وَاسْتَبَقَ الْبَابِ. Right? Now they both were kind of running towards the door. So when you recite this, it's supposed to be both. وَاسْتَبَقَا. But again, it's the same idea here. So when you recite, you'll say وَاسْتَبَقَ الْبَابَ. That this part is called the nabr. Is that okay? وَاسْتَبَقَ الْبَابَ.
What does it mean exactly?
That they both were racing towards the door.
Bab is door, right?
Bab is door. Yeah, they were racing towards the door. Is this okay? Too much? Is it too much?
Isn't it the same when you drop the alif also? That's the only.
لا. This is made for a two-person المثنى. For a two-person, an act of two people, but then Hamzat al-Wasl comes after that, and you cannot have that alif of two alifs facing each other. You can't have two alifs facing each other in the Arabic language. One of them has to be dropped.
So what's the hukm for the when you drop the alif?
But the exact name I might have to find out. But yes, that alif is dropped. I'm sorry. Yeah, how to recite it? وَاسْتَبَقَ الْبَابَ. وَاسْتَبَقَ الْبَابَ.
And if you read it the way it's written, how would you
وَاسْتَبَقَ الْبَابَ. Yes, yeah, and you can't do that. Even in the Arabic, you can't have two alifs facing each other. You can't. One of them will have to be dropped. That's the same thing here. Two alifs facing each other. Same thing here. Two alifs. And right there, same idea. Yeah. SubhanAllah, listen to Abdul Basit is another one, but Sheikh Muhib is Sheikh Uthman is also very, very good at this portion. You know, why is it that sometimes they would kind of raise their voice? Why is it that they're doing?
On YouTube or on the internet?
No. Sheikh Uthman is the one that came to the Qiyam for the New Year's program when we had here in the arena. Yeah, if you wouldn't know, you're like, why is he raising his voice at times? Why? But it's partly because of this. طيب. Any questions on a nabr? Okay. These you have to. These ones here, this is a common thing. I mean, this shay, for example, the word shay. Yeah. Shay. That part is a nabr.
If you listen to recitations, you already notice it.
Yeah. There are, I mean, this is very common. The ones that we did, the fifth one here, these are the specific 3 locations in the Quran. This is a very common thing. This is also fairly common. So when you have harf al-mad followed by a letter that has a shadda on it, you have to emphasize that shadda without creating a mad from it, but emphasizing the shadda. Similarly here, the same idea. The shadda, the wow that you emphasize there, or the ya. And again here, these ones here are very common. Hayy and mustaqar or mustaqir. The ra will have to be in the tha, and these have to be emphasized. طيب. We try to wrap it up, inshallah. Here we'll just do one attribute today, inshallah. When we talk about the attributes of the letters, these are characteristics that differentiate letters from one another, that share the same articulation point. What does that mean? So, for example, what comes from the deep part of the tongue, deepest part of the tongue? Qaf and kaf. They're very kind of close to each other, but somehow they sound different. Qa and ka. So why? You know what distinguishes them is attributes. So even though they have the same makhraj, but they have different attributes, and the attributes are the ones that distinguish them from each other. So there are letters that come from the tip of the tongue, numerous of them. Why are they different? Because of their attributes. So when we talk about these attributes, the application will make one letter distinguished from another letter, even though they happen to come from